What if I told you the smartest student in the school, the one who never got a single answer wrong, was once failed by his own teacher? Not because he made a mistake, but because the teacher saw something wrong, even in his perfect answers. At first, it felt unfair, almost like a mistake. But what that teacher saw changed the student forever. And by the end of this story, you might realize getting the right answers doesn't always mean you truly understand. In a quiet town surrounded by tall neem trees and long dusty roads, there stood a school that people often spoke about with pride. It was not a very large school, nor was it filled with modern facilities, but it was known for one thing: discipline and strong values. Every morning, as the first rays of sunlight slipped through the branches of the trees, students in neat uniforms would walk through its gates, carrying books, dreams, and a quiet sense of purpose. Among those students was a boy named Ishaan. Ishaan was not just an ordinary student. From a very young age, he had shown a remarkable ability to learn quickly. He understood lessons faster than others, remembered things easily, and solved problems with surprising speed. In every exam, his name appeared at the top of the list. Teachers trusted him, classmates admired him, and slowly, without anyone noticing, Ishaan began to believe that being fast and correct was the same as being truly intelligent. In the classroom, while others were still trying to understand the question, Ishaan would already be writing the answer. His pen moved smoothly across the page, confident and steady. By the time the bell rang, he was often the first to close his notebook, lean back in his chair, and wait. There was a quiet pride in his eyes, a sense of certainty that he was always ahead. However, not everyone saw him in the same way. There was one teacher in the school who never praised Ishaan the way others did. His name was Mr. Verma. He was a calm man, with a thoughtful expression and sharp, observant eyes. He spoke less than most teachers, but when he did, his words carried weight. While others focused on Ishaan's perfect answers, Mr. Verma paid attention to something deeper: the way Ishaan arrived at those answers. One day, during a mathematics class, Mr. Verma wrote a difficult problem on the board. It was the kind of question that required careful thinking and patience. The classroom, which had been filled with the usual murmurs, suddenly fell silent. Students leaned forward, trying to make sense of the problem. Some scratched their heads, while others stared blankly at their notebooks, unsure where to begin. Ishaan, as usual, did not hesitate. He read the question once, picked up his pen, and began writing. Within less than a minute, he was done. He placed his pen on the desk and sat back, confident as always. Mr. Verma noticed this. He slowly turned toward Ishaan and said, "Come to the board and explain your solution." Ishaan walked up with ease. He picked up the chalk and began writing each step clearly. His explanation was quick and precise, leading perfectly to the correct answer. When he finished, he turned toward the class, expecting the usual nod of approval. But Mr. Verma did not nod. Instead, he looked at Ishaan for a moment and then said, very calmly, "You reached the correct answer, but you did not understand the question." The entire class fell silent. Ishaan frowned slightly, unsure if he had heard correctly. No one had ever said something like this to him before. In his mind, the result mattered the most. If the answer was right, then the method must also be right. That had always been his belief. He returned to his seat, but something felt different. For the first time, a small doubt appeared in his thoughts. A few days later, the school conducted an important test. It was one of those exams that students prepared for seriously, knowing that the results would matter. Ishaan approached it with the same confidence he always had. He finished early, certain that he had done well. When the results were announced, students gathered around the notice board with excitement. Some were nervous, others curious, but almost everyone expected the same outcome. Ishaan's name at the top. Ishaan stepped forward and scanned the list. His name was not there. He looked again, slower this time, thinking he might have missed it. Then his eyes moved down the list and suddenly they stopped. At the very bottom, next to his name, was a single word: failed. For a moment, everything around him felt distant. The voices of students faded into the background, and his heartbeat seemed louder than anything else. He could not understand what had happened. He knew he had answered every question correctly. Then he noticed the signature on the paper. It was Mr. Verma. That evening, as the sun began to set and the school slowly emptied, Ishaan walked back to his classroom. The corridors were quiet, and the soft orange light from the windows stretched across the floor. He stepped inside and saw Mr. Verma sitting at his desk, going through some papers. Ishaan gathered his courage and spoke. "Sir, I answered everything correctly. Then why did you fail me?" Mr. Verma looked up at him calmly. He did not seem surprised by the question. Instead of answering directly, he asked, "If you memorize every road on a map, does that mean you understand the journey?" Ishaan remained silent. Mr. Verma continued, "You are very fast, Ishaan, faster than anyone in this class. But you do not stop to ask why something works. You do not explore different possibilities. You do not struggle with the problem. You simply reach the answer." He paused for a moment and then added, "For you, learning has become a race. But real understanding is not about speed, it is about depth." Those words stayed with Ishaan. The next day, something changed. When a new question was given, Ishaan did not rush to write the answer. Instead, he read it carefully. He tried to understand what it was asking. For the first time, he allowed himself to slow down. It was not easy. He made mistakes. He erased them. He tried again. The process felt unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable, but he did not stop. Slowly, he began to see things he had never noticed before. Patterns, connections, and ideas that went beyond the final answer. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Ishaan was no longer the fastest student in the class, but something deeper had changed. He began asking questions, not just answering them. He started thinking, not just solving. By the time the final exams arrived, Ishaan felt different. He was no longer focused on finishing first. Instead, he focused on understanding each step. When the results were announced, his name was once again at the top. But this time, the feeling was different. There was no rush of pride, no need to prove anything. Instead, there was a quiet sense of satisfaction. That evening, as he walked out of the classroom, Mr. Verma passed by and asked, "Now tell me, why did I fail you?" Ishaan looked at him and replied, "Because I was not truly learning. I was only performing." Mr. Verma smiled gently and continued walking. And that was the moment Ishaan understood something important. In life, it is possible to get the right answers and still miss the real meaning. It is possible to succeed without truly understanding. But true intelligence is not measured by how fast you reach the answer. It is measured by how deeply you understand the question. From that day on, Ishaan no longer tried to be the fastest. He tried to be the most thoughtful. And in doing so, he discovered that real learning is not about winning a race, but about understanding the journey. And if you love stories that reveal powerful life lessons, make sure to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon to stay updated.